Well, hello, everybody. Welcome in once again to another Alumni Spotlight here on the Queen Sports Network. And of course, as always, I'm Mike Glennon. Today, though, we're joined by a very special guest as we welcome to the program one of the best women's lacrosse players in school history and now the Director of Sports Performance of women's basketball at Wake Forest University, Jena Ready. And Jena, thank you again so much for taking the time out to talk to us here this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't thank you enough for reaching out. Queens means everything to me. My experience as a student athlete at Queens is why I'm sitting in the seat I am right now. And that is nothing but the truth. I tell people that every time, that the reason I'm in this role is because of my experience as a student athlete at Queens. So I'm absolutely honored to be invited. And, your intro saying I was one of the best lacrosse players of all time there, that might be reaching, but I love it.
I'm just saying, statistically, you were one of the best of all time. So I mean, don't sell yourself short there. Don't get me wrong. There's been tons of great women's lacrosse players that have come through this program and continue to come through. But you were there from kind of the beginning of this long run that they're on right now. So
well, thank you so much. That is an honor to even hear, and it was an honor to be part of it. So thank you.
Well, why don't we start by talking about your playing time here at Queens, which, as I mentioned before, was successful to say the least. You're the all-time leader in goals per game, third in total goals, and top 5 in a slew of other offensive categories. So can you talk to us a little bit about your time here, both on and off the field, which, I've talked to a lot of other folks about that student-athlete mentality, but, on and off the field here, what are some of your favorite memories of being a Royal?
Gosh, there's so many. I actually transferred to Queens my sophomore year. I was originally at Presbyterian College where I played lacrosse, and I had a great experience, but I just feel like it wasn't a fit for me for the next 3 years. And I actually had an opportunity to come to Queens before Presbyterian, and I am from Charlotte. I grew up in Charlotte and went to high school in Charlotte, so I think my younger, dumber self didn't want to be close to home, and that swayed me.
Sure.
After being at Presbyterian, I kind of remembered all the great things that Queens had and offered me when I was getting recruited, and I just knew I wanted to go there. And I might have made a little bit of a mistake, but I think sometimes it took that to make me realize how special of a place Queens is. I got to come to Queens my sophomore year. And I absolutely loved it. It changed my whole experience on athletics. I started maybe not to enjoy playing lacrosse as much, or didn't know if college sports was going to be for me. And then I came to Queens and it clicked, and I was like, okay, I'm still meant to do this. And wow, this is, such a great opportunity to compete at a really high level, because our lacrosse programs historically have been really good. And even our conference back then was really good. We had a lot of top 25, top 10 teams. So it was a way for me to compete at the highest level and then be at a university academically that is really awesome and offers so many unique things. And then in an area that is unmatched to this day, I say the area Queens is in is unmatched to any university in North Carolina, especially Division II. So yeah.
Well, and that's the one thing we always talk about is it's a Division II school, but you almost have that Division I feel by the location of it, and the type of facilities that are there, and just kind of the staff that is on staff here in terms of, obviously you work in sports performance now. The sports performance staff here is amazing. So there is that little aspect of getting that small college education, but in a big place.
Absolutely, for sure. And then some of my best memories are with the team. My team, all 3 years I was there was, I get so nostalgic and almost emotional thing of it, because that was just the greatest part. And I think it's so rare is what I realized for teams to be like the way we were. We were so close knit and really, we were with each other 24/7 by choice, not because we had to be. And that I thought was really special. And it's sometimes known at the different places I've been now in my career, I don't always see that. And I realize now how rare it is to have what we kind of had. So just anytime being with them and competing with them was just a blast. We loved competing together. And, I always say being at now a more Power 5 school, and they get these fans, and, we get good crowds for a lot of our games prior to COVID. Sure. I think it's amazing when I look back. I'm like, we played with some of our dads in the crowd, maybe back in the day at Queens, we didn't get turnout, but we competed like we were playing, with a crowd of people. Like it didn't matter to us. And I think that's, again, was so special thinking back. Like we did not care about any of that. We competed no matter what the circumstances was. And I think that's one of the special things about being in athletics, especially in Division II. It's like it's an uncommon, unmatched type of competitism, which is really cool. Yeah.
Well, Jena, after graduation, you go on and go to Lenoir-Rhyne for your master's in sports and exercise. I think you worked with 9 different sports at Lenoir-Rhyne. Am I right?
Yeah, it was a bunch. I to tell you the truth, I'd have to recall all of them, but yeah, it was like close to 9. We assisted in everything too, so yes, for sure.
Well, and I have to imagine, especially getting your master's, that's pretty good practicum experience anyway, of being able to work with a broad range of athletes and just kind of, body types and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. To be honest, right before I went to Lenoir-Rhyne, I actually was at Queens as an assistant strength coach.
Okay.
So I interned with strength and conditioning with Darren Tyson, who was the strength and conditioning coach at the time. And he's also me and Mark Lipkowski's mentor and probably the most influential person in, I think, both of our careers. So when Darren left, it was after my senior year, Mark got hired on as head strength and conditioning coach. And I was really fortunate that Queens kind of offered me an opportunity to come be an assistant and help Mark, since they knew that I've already had experience working there as an intern during my time as a senior, and gave me this awesome opportunity to come in and get hands-on experience right away. I mean, it's so crazy when I think back. It was just the 2 of us between how many teams you guys have right now, how many sports are at Queens. So it was just us 2. And it was the best experience ever because it was like thrown into the fire in so many ways. It was, my first day was like, Mark had a team on campus. I had a team at the complex. So it was like, go, no one was holding my hand, which was the best way to learn for me. It was like, you have to go fail and figure out what works and doesn't work on your own. And you get to be completely yourself. So it's the best way to figure out what type of coach you are. And then along with that too, the fact that Queens kind of trusted me to come in and go from being an athlete and a peer to a lot of these athletes to then being a coach, I think says wonders about the university on what they believe in with their alumni and how much they believe that they groomed us and prepared us to be in those positions. So I was super fortunate to have that year right before Lenoir-Rhyne, and where I then pursued my master's in exercise and sports science.
Sure. Well, I mean, especially with the program that you're so familiar with and that you've been with for forever and had that familiarity with, it's got to be a little bit easier in terms of working in and really, like you said, trial by fire. There's no buffer period. It's just right into it. Yeah. So sometimes that's when you learn the best, though. You never know. But
I agree.
You go on from that point after Lenoir-Rhyne to work at Winthrop, where you were the assistant strength and conditioning coach there. It was women's basketball, women's tennis, women's lacrosse. And then men's golf and cross country. What was it like getting that first big job where it wasn't an internship anymore, it was a job, and you now are in a career that you love, but what was that responsibility like?
I think my experience being at the Division II level, working with multiple teams and having such hands-on experience right away prepared me for it. I felt overly prepared for it, if I'm being honest. On top of it, a funny full circle moment was Julika was the head women's lacrosse coach there, who was my coach at Queens. And so she, gave me a lot of confidence and right away when the job opened at Winthrop, she was like, this is you, this is perfect. Like you can do this. You are already ready for it, this jump. And, that belief from someone that I care so much about on her opinion and value her advice in this field, it was really huge and gave me a lot of confidence as well, knowing that, she believed that I could do it, since her word held so much value to me.
Sure. I mean, any sort of, and that's one thing you hear a lot from people that have left Queens is that support system and how that extends past being a student athlete and a, coach kind of relationship. So that's cool to hear that obviously it worked into the professional side of things as well. You went on and you're now with the Demon Deacons, where you've been there since, I believe, November of 2018. Yeah. And you're the director of sports performance for women's basketball. First, can you just talk about what it means to get such a great position in such a short amount of time and kind of what that feeling's like?
Yeah, this is a pretty close to a dream job of mine. When I started out my career, I knew I wanted to be primarily with women's basketball, and it's just because I had experience and firsthand knowledge on what you're capable of doing by being with just one team.
Sure.
And that was really important to me because being a student athlete, you understand the impact a coach can have on you, and being around them as much as you can, whether it's in practice, the weight room, traveling games, it just allows you to make a bigger impact than just being in the weight room. So I wanted that ability because that's really like my why. My why is like I want to be able to be a part of my student athletes experience and have such a positive one in the way mine was at Queens. So it was just, something I always wanted and something I really valued was being able to build those relationships and see them more outside the weight room. So when this job came up, it meant the world to me that I got the opportunity now to finally do what I wanted. And I'm not going to lie, I tell a lot of young strength coaches this, especially females, like if you're never going to feel ready to make a big jump. Like, you're never going to completely feel ready, especially when, you get there, you're like, oh, wow, am I prepared for this? But you just got to do it and make the jump and go with it. And you'll learn, and you are ready. You just got to go take on the challenge and learn from the mistakes you made and experience you had and lean on all the experience that you've had to be able to, feel like you're competent enough to do the job.
Well, it's funny. You sound like someone who's definitely learned from that trial by fire mentality in terms of it's just about doing it, because there's only so much you can read about this stuff, and there's only so much until you put it into practical use.
100%. Yeah. Totally.
Well, since you've been at Wake Forest, kind of what does your daily routine look like as a strength and conditioning coach? You mentioned for just it's for women's basketball, but like you said, it allows you to be kind of intertwined in their lives as student athletes. So what does your daily routine look like?
So I'm full part of the women's basketball staff. So whatever the staff and student athletes have, I have. So, being a director of sports performance, I kind of encompass and oversee a lot of things, whether it's sports nutrition, some of the sport technology and science we use. I'm at every practice. I conduct every warm up for practice, usually get them prepped for practice. Like if, there's different foam rolling or stretching routines. And soft tissue work, kind of whatever the individual athlete needs. We run GPS monitoring system. It's called Polar Team Pro. We run that during practice, which allows me to live feed heart rates and then track training loads over time. So that's kind of my part in what practices look like. And then usually we either lift before practice, right going into practice, or in the morning, depending on the day and our schedule. So that usually takes up some of my afternoon. And then depending on what time of year it is, like in season, I have sometimes more groups flow in during the day, or individual training sessions. I attend a lot of meetings as well. Like I said, I'm part of the staff with basketball. So there's a lot of times I'm in meetings about recruits or recruiting. We might have a recruit coming on, and I kind of need to be involved in the process of what that looks like when they get on campus, pre-COVID. If we have recruits coming, I meet with them, their families. I go out to eat with the recruits and their families. So I'm pretty heavily involved in anything our assistant sport coaches would be involved in.
Cool.
So it's really awesome. And I love that aspect of it, because you really get a whole different look on, athletics and what it looks like to be a part of a team.
Well, you're a coach and you're an all around. You basically kind of have an all around job, and that's kind of nice because it allows you to do everything you love and then some.
Exactly, absolutely.
Well, I do have a question in terms of of course, the biggest story that came out with the NCAA tournament this year was the discrepancy in terms of the strength and conditioning stuff that they had there. And you guys were a part of the tournament this year. Can you talk a little bit about that and just kind of, I realize it's a bit of a battle sometimes, but that being said, kind of, can you just talk a little bit about this year and kind of what you told your young ladies heading into that?
Yeah. And I appreciate you even asking that and bringing that to light, because it's something, I say, it was it was super disheartening to see kind of the resources we were provided compared to the men. And it was more disappointing to try to, I guess what I wanted the most out of it was hard for me to understand how that decision was made and what the conversation was. That's my thing, and that's because of multiple things. It's, one is they think we don't need it and that we don't train, and that we don't lift weights. And two is they believe that what we need is a cardio bike and weight up to 25 pounds.
Sure.
That's disappointing and disheartening because it's just a lack of understanding on what we need then. And then we're aware and we just decided not to give the same resources. So that was the thing to me that was most frustrating. Like what was the conversation? Because then there lies how we can solve it. Is it a lack of understanding on what female athletes train like? Is it a lack of understanding on what we need this time in season to train and keep our girls physically prepared for games?
Sure.
Why is it that, they believe that it would have been different for what the men need compared to us when we play the same exact sport? This is one instance where the demands of the sport are the same. The amount of time we were in the bubble is the same. Energy system demand is the same. Everything is the same. So it's this particular situation is where it's most frustrating on what the conversation was.
Sure.
So to be honest, it was a issue that was held pretty consistent in the beginning of the tournament. And, it was just, my girls really appreciated. I kind of had a really strong stance on it and voice on it right from the jump. And they really appreciated it and admired it because they saw it right away. We were here and the girls were seeing the men's tournament post these videos in this weight room and all these clips. Their media people are throwing up all these insane videos of them using this weight.
Yeah, saw all of them.
Oh yeah. And so we're still here and our girls are like, Jena, did you see the weight room we're gonna have access to? Like they're pumped about it because that's what we do. We train and it has become ingrained in what we do and they understand how important it is and how we need the same type of training that our male counterparts do. And it's took such a long time to build that mentality in women's sports in general. So, it's really sacred to me that mentality and mindset on what training looks like for women and that it's okay to lift heavy weights. So, they're assuming we're going to get the same access to that. And then when we get there and they realize that's what we're provided, now what's that telling them? And that's the thing, most important thing is like, what is it telling our female athletes? It could tell them a numerous thing. The story of it could be, they're not as important as the men. They don't deserve the same things. It could be, oh, you don't need to train that way. So the picture goes way beyond just having nice things. And that's what that was what held the most importance to me is being able to paint a different picture and say, no, someone messed up and this is a problem. And all those things that we've been telling you do stand true. And it's just, there was somewhere a really big mistake. So yeah,
I'd second that. And there's a whole lot of people that also second that. So, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think one of my favorite things in sports over the last couple of years has been that kind of resurgence of women's basketball because the talent is so widespread now and so overwhelmingly good, especially in this region of the country. It's nice to see kind of that resurgence. And anybody that watched 30 seconds of a few women's games and 30 seconds of a few men's games, I'd be hard pressed to say that the men's tournament was better than the women's tournament this year in terms of those games that were played. So again, interesting to hear your side of things, especially someone on the front lines of all that stuff. And it's also encouraging to hear that the athletes themselves weren't disparaged by it. They used it as fuel, if anything, and were able to kind of push through that because, unfortunately, that's something that's probably going to come up further in their lives. And it's how do you deal with that kind of setback and such like that?
Yeah. And you nailed it on the head. I say, when I was talking to Rose, like this is nothing we're not used to. And that's the reality of it. This isn't the first time that we've noticed a disparity between our male counterparts. So, it's not a distraction. And that was something someone brought up was, we don't want this to be a distraction. It's not a distraction. Trust me, we're used to sometimes being aware of disparities. So it's just fuel, exactly what you said. Like, it's just fuel, and it just empowers them to continue to have a voice and push the envelope and, stand on the shoulders of so many women that has set the stage for us. So you're absolutely right.
Well, and especially like I say, in women's basketball right now, it's so much fun to watch the kind of talent that's out there and just the caliber of games that are going on. So, and I know a lot of that starts with you guys behind, sort of behind the scenes, obviously coaching, but you are a member of the coaching staff. So, it's just cool to kind of watch that resurgence here of women's basketball. Before I let you go, let me ask you one more question. In terms of just kind of, I guess the amount of fun that you have on a daily basis and what you can attribute to your time here at Queens to kind of seeing it come full circle now that, like you said, you found one of your dream jobs.
I almost get emotional talking about it. I say every time I would not be in the seat if it was not for Queens. And there are so many people that believed in me at Queens when I couldn't see it myself, and pushed me and encouraged me to stay in athletics. And, even Darren Tyson, he's one of my biggest mentors and most influential people in my career, because I remember him always pushing me and believing me to stay in it and seeing something, hey, you have a real interest in this, you'd be awesome. And just, guiding me in the right direction. And, I would have never known this career even existed if it wasn't for Queens. And I know Queens was even on top of it, having a strength coach compared to Division II schools. A lot of them didn't even have it. It just, Queens, sparked an interest in me that has lasted. And during my time in Queens, that interest just grew and grew because I was surrounded by so many people that are experts in what they do and really believed in me. So I would never be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for Queens. And I'm so proud to be an alumni, and I'm so grateful for everyone I've ever crossed paths with there too.
Well, I can say that the university is proud to have you as an alumni as well. So thank you so much. Always nice to hear a former Royal, I guess always a Royal, doing what they love. And so, again, appreciate you taking the time, Jenna, to talk to us. I'll let you get back to your busy schedule, but this was awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, that'll do it for another Alumni Spotlight here on the Queen Sports Network. Make sure you come back and join us every single Thursday at 10 a.m. right back here on YouTube. Have a great day, everybody, and as always, go Royals.